We're ready. Okay. So, was there a question?
Quick question.
Yeah.
Story when you first saw your reflection, you said to yourself, "You have all the resources," and to almost like you were saying to Gary, "You have all the resources you need," and this, that, and the other. And then as he was engaged in that, you flipped back to telling the story as I. Was that tactful?
Absolutely. Is that on purpose?
Right.
Yeah. It's, in your Milton language, right? It's an embedded command. You have all the resources, right? Looking at the dissociated image of myself, which then he can, of course, associate into that experience.
Okay.
Right?
And then then once you associated him, it was okay to switch back to saying the I.
When I reassociated into myself, then I went back to I. Right, so when I was talking to myself there, I was saying you, because I was dissociated from myself. I was seeing the qualities in myself, which is what the swish is based on, right? When you're trying to change that behavior, you create an ideal self-image, one that has the qualities of yourself that can handle whatever that situation is. Right? So as I look at myself, I see that I have the qualities to be able to climb this mountain.
And so as Gary's listening, he's hearing, you have the qualities you have the resources you need.
Well, it sends his mind in that direction. Whether it works or not, we don't know. But that's the idea. It's to get him to think about his own resources. Right? And yet he may not, because of the stories about mountain climbing, it's not about going home and doing that. So we're not talking about that. So it's easy to engage in that a lot more easily, right?
But the mountain is also a mountain of work.
That was how I set it up, right? The immensity of the mountain, and then
facing it, and oh my God,
right.
I'm going to have 500 emails when I get home.
That's the idea, or whatever it is. So then I had to figure out how to transition it into the lake, right? So that I could have it change the submodalities. So the fish coming up in it caused the ripple effect, which changes the submodalities of the image, right? Because the submodality is big and overwhelming, and suddenly it becomes all these little pictures, all these ripples. It's my reaction to it now changes, right? So the fish was just a little additional piece, a little hook, exactly as Gary says.
Is there a book of metaphors that is just sort of some great imagery in one little simple compiled book?
You're best to call probably NLP Comprehensive and ask about that.
Okay. There's no particular
I
favorite
don't.
that you pull stuff out of all the time?
Well, I love this book, Is There Life Before Death? It's not really about metaphors, but it has many wonderful stories in it.
Is there life
And
after
many.
death?
Is There Life Before Death?
Okay.
By Steve Andreas. It's basically an anthology of stories and poems and sayings and quotes and things like that he collected over the years that I think just there's a lot of really rich stories in there. But I'm sure there's other books on metaphor. David Gordon probably has a couple. Yeah.
I have a question about how you would actually use this in practice, because you said that you had thought of it earlier. Do you take advantage of like bathroom breaks or whatever, or the next session you go back
session.
Okay.
I'm sure that Norma and her husband, I think his name was Phil, probably worked those metaphors out at home together, preparing them so that then they could tell them to him when he came in for the session. So if you're going to do this kind of practice, it's not going to happen in the session usually. You're going to take time to really think about what's going on for this person, where are the blocks, what do I need to offer, and then you could embed a pattern into it. Tell a story at the beginning of a session or at the end or whatever. Yeah. Any more questions about what to do? What you're going to be doing? So I really encourage you to use the coaches to assist you in coming up with a pattern, like we did yesterday. If you really feel like you got it and you can move forward, make sure you have somebody helping you check ecology and that kind of thing before you proceed. So again, it's 3 people, A, B, and C. C is going to do a lot less this time. They're kind of helping with the elicitation, but it's mostly B's job to get the information that they need about present state and desired state. And then you can use C as a consultant. Help me to figure out what pattern we ought to use. I used all of you guys. New behavior generator was a possibility, and swish came up and something else. So use C to help you kind of generate that. Then once you've got it, then you need to sort of work through how you're going to incorporate the pattern into the metaphor. And then you could tell it briefly in a summary to C. Okay? So that they can just check for ecology. Then call A back and deliver. And then the final feedback and tape editing. Questions? We've got about an hour and 15 minutes to do this. So I want to have a few minutes for closing. So you've got a little less than 30 minutes each, about 25 minutes each. And again, we'll keep time and come around and check on you. Ready? Different groups, Don't keep working with the same people. Stretch yourselves a little bit. Okay. The metaphor that I told Gary, I didn't make that up. Birgit did.
Cool. Go here. That's great.
So we're going fishing this weekend.
So I just added a little bit to it, and that was all. So thank you for that. Made my job easier. So how'd that go?
It's pretty good. Great.
Great. Wow. Any wows?
Yeah,
Whoa,
wow.
whoa, whoa.
Great gift.
It's pretty powerful. There's one important aspect of metaphor that I haven't mentioned yet. And that is, never reveal
What you're doing.
your metaphors to anybody. And if you're receiving a metaphor, never ask the intended meaning. Leave it to your unconscious to do the interpretation. Because as soon as you either tell what your metaphor, what the meaning was, the unconscious now can't work on it anymore. Because now the conscious mind has a meaning for it. And so that process can be halted. Does that make sense?
It is.
So if you share...
It is true, because in the scriptures when Jesus tells parables and all, hardly he has given interpretations.
Hardly gives any interpretation?
Yes, he just left it open-ended.
That's right. So it's very important. And even though you're tempted to tell, restrain yourselves. It's much more power if you let the unconscious work on it over the next days and weeks and so on. Anything else from that exercise? Do you feel worn out?
Mm-hmm.
Feel like you've done a lot of work? No, we're ready to do more. All right, we're going till 10 tonight. Some people are going, no. Good work today. This is a lot. And I feel really happy and proud of you guys and what you did to accomplish what you did. I mean, all this that you're putting together from this whole training, you really begun the process of integration now. Do you feel like you're beginning to discover what you know? What you've learned?
What you don't know, too. Right?
That's the easier one, to recognize what you don't know.
Yeah.
But to have it come into consciousness what you have learned, the skills and tools that you have developed, even though you may not have been practicing it, that just sort of began to come to you as you were working in your groups. What you're noticing about people, in their, visually, what you can hear, the language patterns, your development with asking questions and so on. A lot of things have shifted already, haven't they? Coming up, you have 3 days with Charles, which you've already experienced him for a couple of days, right? So he's going to be a fun one to help close the training out for you. and continue the process of bringing it all together. So that'll be good. Anything from any part of the training that you want to ask about at this point? Anything that comes to mind? Anything that came up during the last 2 days? Yeah.
Let's see. The first day, there was something on the ecology check, the first part, that was talking about a guided search using
Yes.
anchors, and I was a little confused as to what that was.
What that process is?
Yeah.
Do any of you remember doing that in the training?
Guided.
Oh, you said you didn't do that. Okay. The guided search is a process for one of two things. One, it can be used for anchoring a resource state and finding all the examples where that resource state has been part of your life in the past. So you can anchor it in a present moment to remember, say, the last time you had it, and then to build that resource by remembering all the previous times. So you can build it really much stronger that way. So you would just do a kinesthetic anchor as the person's accessing that resource state, and then just ask them to allow their unconscious mind to bring up for them the previous time that they felt that same way.
Oh, okay.
And a time before that, and a time before that, and a time before that, which begins to reinforce that state. Okay? It can also be used with a dysfunctional state, or a negative state, or a difficult state, problem state, by anchoring that, taking it back in time to find its earliest origin, which can help you to sort of deal with reframing and so on where it started, create a resource back there, and then bring it back forward through time. So it's using timeline, and it's used a lot with changing beliefs, with a pattern called re-imprinting, things like that. It's used to, and with the trauma procedure, it's used because sometimes, like, say I have a fear of flying, but I don't remember its origin. I just remember the last plane I was on. So we could anchor that experience I had on the last plane, take that back in time and find its origin. Find the first time that I felt that kind of anxiety. And then do the trauma procedure on that. And then we can change it over time.
We're doing re-imprinting, in fact, within the next 3 days.
Oh, really? Wow.
So
Excellent.
it's going to be coming up.
Excellent. That wasn't taught in my practitioner, so I'm a little jealous of you guys. Get re-imprinting. I already know it, so I'm not jealous in that sense. But yeah, that's a fun, really fun pattern. It's an amazing pattern. It incorporates so many things. Timeline and anchoring and forgiveness, and many patterns can be sort of resolved with re-imprinting, many things. Anything else? So I just put this back up here as a quick review and reminder, sort of where we were around ecology. The ecology of the whole system you're really paying attention to in your relationship when you're working with somebody. And then the ecology right down to the specific metaphor or technique that you're using. And that's really beneficial in making sure that it's going to work, that it's going to provide the effectiveness and efficiency that you want when you're delivering a process or a change process. Yeah.
Just curious, personally, when you're working with people or with groups, how much metaphor do you use in your own?
I tell a lot of stories.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily do a lot of embedding techniques into stories, but I tell a lot of stories that seem relevant in the moment to what the person is dealing with. And the basic purpose of that is to help loosen where they are. That's how I use it mostly. Because if I can get wherever they've got something held a little bit loosened, then it's a lot easier to move in a new direction. So I often use quotes, anecdotes, stories to help do that. Yeah. Okay. How about a final story? Yeah?